so the first question that I'd like to ask you tonight, that in your opinion, what would you say is the struggle with Black America, and how do we get here? How would you say that we got here? What's that struggle, and what happened? Why the struggle?
So let me kind of start with something positive and kind of really help your point along. So look at all the sports that were invented by people that were not Black.
Right.
You take basketball. Basketball was not played by Black folks for a while. But it provided a pathway for Blacks, and now Blacks dominate basketball. Take football, same thing. All you got to do is watch the Packers playing, Super Bowl I. You see a whole lot of Black people on that field.
That's true.
But you see Black people dominating. I'll give you two more examples. Let's take the music industry. I mean, and Dad, you know this better than anyone. All of those guys who are backing those rap stars and those pop stars, guess where they got their start at? In church.
In church, that's true.
They got their start in church. I mean, you talk about some of your most skilled and disciplined, musicians, and then to jazz. Blacks revolutionized jazz. They did. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker. These guys took jazz to another level.
Right.
The thing is, in those areas, Blacks just have seemed to dominate, but in other areas we've been weak because our focus has been kind of on this. And I want to be careful how I say this. We've still kind of had this Messiah complex. Like there's this one person that's going to represent the entire culture, and we kind of put our entire force behind that individual. Oh, that individual represents me. And there's a historical reason why we kind of had this Messiah complex. And it does go back to slavery, because when Blacks began to really understand the narrative of scripture, of this deliverance, and you hear it all the time. I mean, we want to be freed. Blacks the story of Moses and people being freed from captivity, that resonates amongst the Black community. So I totally understand that. But the thing is, we're in America now. So and I know people don't like to hear this, I don't have any shackles around my legs. I don't. I can walk to the store, I can get whatever I want, and I don't feel haunted. I don't feel like anybody's profiling me at all. Right. If I don't like this store, I go to another store.
Right.
It's no big deal. But I think a part of it is there's been some structural elements at the foundational level that Blacks have not paid attention to, and we've placed our hope on kind of like this new Messiah that will come along, who's going to pull us out and rescue us out of our situation, rather than actually doing it in a reverse way. Saying, all right, let's take care of the structural and the foundational issues. And those structural and foundational issues: number one, family; number two, education. And then everything else comes after that. Family and education, everything else comes after that.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned about families, because one of the things that, if you allow me to interject this, there's this book that I read and entitled, and you shared the same thought in reference to it. It's called the Moynihan Report. I think the gentleman's name is Peter or Philip Moynihan.
Yeah, I think it's Patrick Daniel.
Patrick, that's it, Patrick. And one of the things that in a short descriptive, one of the things that he really points out was the deterioration of families. And one of the issues that he kept pointing out, there's so many things that the sad thing is this, before I don't want to get ahead of myself, was that this report was done in 1964. And when I started reading it, and here it is 56 years later, I'm like saying to myself, but what has changed? The same things that was pointed out, brought out through the book, the same thing is occurring today. Okay, and one of the issues is that I think there has been the common denominator has been the decline of families and the structure itself. Okay, so so you were saying that how we got to where we're at is because we just focus on the wrong things. You didn't say that's absolutely per se, but we focus more on sports and things of that nature, and really going down to the root and to the foundation of what we need to do as a culture of people. And that is, hey, start at home, start in the family. Make sure that family structure is right there where it needs to be. And therefore, it's almost like the same as a tree, even if I can say an oak tree. You know, if you got good roots and the roots go deep, guess what? And it's planted and it's in good soil. You're doing what is necessary in order to nurture that tree. When it grows up and it blooms and all the branches, it's going to be there, you know, and that's just how it is. I just feel that the family structure should be. I don't know if my next question was, you know, who do we blame for this? And yeah, let's talk about that. So who would you say we blame for this? What has happened right now?
So, I mean, really trying to trace or chase blame is always a challenging and difficult thing. But let me answer the question by saying this. Let's take Miami. Let's take the history of Miami. So at one point in time, Jews were not allowed on Miami Beach at all. Jews were not. Mm-hmm. There were signs posted, I want to say early 50s, 60s, that says no dogs, no something, no Jews. So Jews were a group that was subject to racial discrimination. Mm-hmm. In the early, I want to say 50s, early 50s, the Hispanic population here in South Florida maybe was about 10,000. Wasn't a whole lot. Black culture actually thrived down here. They thrived down here in South Florida. So, and there's pockets all the way across America where blacks have thrived. I mean, like legitimately thrived.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, but when you pull back the curtain and you say, well, why did they thrive? Well, they thrived because the family structure was still intact. Mm-hmm. Right now, the divorce rate within the Black community is crazy. And what's even worse than that is the out of wedlock birth rate is
absolutely
it's like through the roof, right? This is not a you can't blame this on white people. Right, I mean, honestly, 75% of Black kids are born out of wedlock or born to single parents. I forget which one it is, but they're not born to a stable family. So I think, and if I'm going to be honest here, I think that it's a combination of things. I think there are certain factors, historical factors, that Blacks have just struggled against. That's real. I'm not disputing that.
Right.
But now, let's go back. Let's go to this Moynihan report. In Martin Luther King, 1964 Civil Rights Act passed. 1965 Voter Rights Act passed. Right. Even before that, the military was desegregated by Harry Truman. So you have a lot of these things taking place, but then there's something else that takes place right after the Voting Rights Act that many Blacks don't know about. It's what's called the Great Society programs.
Absolutely.
So the Great Society, just look it up, Lyndon B. Johnson, Great Society programs. Basically what he does, what Martin Luther King, Andrew Johnson, all of these civil rights leaders were fighting for was equal opportunity.
Right.
But what Lyndon Johnson did at a speech that he gave at Howard University in Washington, D.C., he said, listen, you can't free a man, this is quoting him, you can't free a man and bring him up to the starting line and ask him to run effectively. That was effectively what everybody else who basically had a head start. Mm-hmm. But here's what the Great Society program did. Lyndon Johnson wanted equal outcome. And so what it did was it decentivized the Black family from working as hard as they could. It made it easier. Those Great Society programs, what we're talking about is the welfare programs. I'm not anti-welfare, so hear me. The welfare programs, the food stamp programs, the child care programs, I mean, in perpetuity. And what I mean is you can get on these things and there's no limit. You can actually milk the system. And so there's really no incentive for some people for staying married or even getting married. And in some cases, and this is just true, let's not dispute it. We all know that this thing gets passed down generationally. And I'll give you one example. I just spoke with a boy that a young man that I mentored. And he was telling me how his mom wants to put him on the Section 8 so that they can get a larger so they can get a 2-unit. And I said, brother, I said, now you know me. I said, I'm not anti that, but that's going to trap you if you go down that road. And it's going to be a hard cycle to get out of because you're going to get so comfortable. So I think Blacks have to own. They have to own those areas. They have to look in the mirror and just say, let's stop pretending that we got our stuff together. Let's stop pretending that we got problems let's open up our own closets. Let's look in our own backyards and let's just be honest with each other and say, yeah, that's a problem. We need to take care of that. And stop blaming it on people who aren't sleeping with our women.
Hey, listen.
I went there. Sorry, Pops.
Hey, listen. But let's be truthful, and this is a platform about the truth. It's a platform about reality, okay? And and one of the things that even to follow up on what you were saying, that one of the things is that when I got from even reading the Moynihan Report, and then the other book that you had mentioned was False Black Power by Jason Riley. And at the end of the day, the bottom line, I know a lot of people are not going to want to hear this or like what you're about to say, but what we're about to say. But listen, we need to take responsibilities of our own life, of our own care, okay? And you said it. Now, listen, I myself is not anti-welfare, food stamp, or EBT, or whatever they call it, okay? But listen, but at the end of the day, look, one thing that I know for sure and I've said this many times before, that God has given us means of production where we don't have to depend on anyone. And I know folks are going to retaliate for this, okay? But we got to get off the government bottom.